But we won't see that one for just about 2.5 months. So
Yeah.
without further ado, why don't we go ahead and reveal the AP poll
Let's
here?
look at
So
it.
we got Missouri sitting in
Okay.
there at number 25, Louisville at 24, Houston
Yeah.
at 23, Iowa 22, Utah at 21.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on these five?
I like Missouri at that 25 spot a lot because I feel like, to me, this has been a team that hasn't been talked about too much, but I do feel like they have the pieces to be a really good football team and at least have some big upsets this year.
Yeah, I think, 25, it's funny because all the non-SEC people joke about how, all right, who is going to sit in there at 25 from the SEC that doesn't really deserve to be. And what I will say to that is I think Missouri deserves to be on this list more than the Iowa Hawkeyes do. I have no problem with Houston. Okay. Louisville, I think that was a little bit generous as well.
Yeah.
Utah, I think, is going to be fine with Devin Dampier. But Louisville and Iowa are the two where it's like, maybe we probably could have done better without them being in here, but they're not as bad as some of the other teams that I've seen on here that it's like, all right, based on what we've seen this offseason, I don't know about you, but I feel like the preseason poll is about answering all of the questions that we had earlier.
Yeah.
Rather than, all right, what additional questions do we have? And I have so many more questions ever since that fall camp has started about a couple teams that are inside the top 25.
That's true. I feel like, to your point, Louisville is always a team that just gets a little extra love for some reason from the AP poll. I haven't kept up with them too closely, but interesting to see them at that 24 spot.
Well, they lost Chris Bell, who was their leading wide receiver from last year.
Okay.
And they also lost Miller Moss, who was their starting quarterback from last season. But, I mean, that's a duo that seems to be needing to be replaced every year or every 2 years. I mean, your wide receiver one and your QB one, it seems like all the time you're going to see that. Like Alabama's having to do that here this year as well. Yeah. Where I'm a little bit shocked, and you're going to hate me
I already know.
Why?
There we go. Tennessee in the top 20, baby.
I don't understand why. This goes back to
what Patrick? Because they don't have a quarterback?
Well, what did I just say? We usually put teams in the top 25 that we have answers to the questions that we had. Tennessee in the last 2 weeks had just given us more questions.
But I think the answer is Josh Heupel is your head coach. And we have seen him make it work with a new quarterback year after year. So it's more so about looking at the other pieces on the team. And you return 2 wide receivers. You return a 1,000-yard rushing back. You return some key pieces on the defense. It's a new system, so there are question marks.
However,
but you have to assume they're going to be better, Patrick.
But they just lost a starting safety.
They did.
For the rest of the season.
They did.
So that's a major blow. Combine that with no Arian Carter for the first 2 games. That again, now I have more questions about that Georgia Tech game in week 2. If you think they're going to play for a college football playoff spot, you need your best guys on the field. And your best ability is availability.
Yeah.
And unfortunately right now, and I haven't seen Faison Brandon play a snap at the college level yet. I don't know if he's going to be the QB1. For some reason, people think George is going to be the QB1. I still think it's going to be Faison, but
I think it'll be Faison.
I understand he's got a lot of skill.
I think it's tight, though.
It's definitely tight, and I think, honestly, weirdly enough, all 3 of the potential freshman quarterbacks here in the SEC, or freshman or second-year quarterbacks in the SEC, it seems like those battles are very close. Vanderbilt's close, weirdly enough, because Blaze had a pretty good scrimmage.
Yeah.
Alabama's been close. You could make an argument for either side of the equation. And then Tennessee, it's also like kind of the same thing. You could make an argument for either one.
Yeah, I think it's the wrestling between someone who knows the system really well and a freshman that looks like they have more talent, but they're still figuring things out. Yeah. That's kind of what we're seeing in the quarterback.
What I honestly like here, there are 2 teams on this list that I think can be college football playoff contenders right here. Okay. SMU at 19. Yeah. I really like the Mustangs with Rhett Lashley and Kevin Jennings. It seems like a lot of people have really forgotten about him, the quarterback over there.
Yeah, and they always have a good run game.
Always a good run game. And honestly, they play in the ACC, which has been an absolute joke of a conference in the last few years, and it hurts me to say that. But I think the ACC will be a little bit better here this year. I'm going to make a bold prediction that Penn State might actually play for a college football playoff spot. I'm basically going to go on the record and say they're the Iowa State Nittany Lions. They bring over pretty much everyone from Matt Campbell's Iowa State
Okay.
Hawkeyes team. Or Cyclones. Goodness, I cannot believe I just called them the Hawkeyes.
Okay.
And if you take a look at their schedule, we've talked about the Big Ten and how bad some of these teams are in this conference.
Yeah.
Their toughest game, I think, is Michigan at home.
Okay.
Outside of that,
yeah,
I think USC's their whiteout game. Outside of last year, you take away that game against Oregon, it's always, a fun atmosphere to be a part of, and Penn State usually has a major advantage in that. But, I mean, this team is experienced in a Big 12. I honestly think if you take some of these teams at the Big Ten that Penn State's going to play this year in the Big Ten, and you stack them up against some of the teams that they would play, meaning Matt Campbell in the Big 12, I think they'd be probably neck and neck with each other. And Iowa State has been atop the Big 12 for the last few years. So that's why I've weirdly a lot of confidence in this Penn State team.
I mean, that's true. That's true, especially if they can win the conference title.
However, it feels like once they do actually play someone, then they might get exposed. So we might see another James Franklin in the makings. But I want to pump the brakes on that just a little bit. Okay. We'll go inside the top 15. We actually have two teams there tied for 14th. USC and BYU both at 14. Alabama outside of the top 10 for the first time since 2008.
There's some mad Alabama fans out
there. There are
right
some
now.
mad Alabama fans, and according to the AP poll, they would not make the college football playoff right now. They would be one of the first few teams out. Texas Tech there at 12 and LSU at 11. That's kind of interesting as well.
Where were they on the coaches poll? A little higher up, I think.
I think they were sitting at around 9.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. I can go ahead and look that up here in a minute. But weirdly enough, I feel like USC and BYU, that's kind of interesting that they're both sitting there at 14 because I honestly think USC might have the better team. I know Bear Bachmeier is a great quarterback.
Yeah.
And USC's replacing some of that production, but I still think that they could be pretty good here.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think 14 is a pretty reasonable spot for them, though.
What I will say is I like that people are in agreement on they don't really know where to put this LSU team. And that's been something that we've been talking about for a while here is that, hey, I know Sam Leavitt's really starting to get going here in the fall and in fall camp. And, we're finally seeing him on the field for the first time in Baton Rouge. But they just don't know. There's a little bit of hesitancy about this team in general. And I think that's pretty interesting.
No, I agree. And I think it's what I've been saying up until this point on our show. It's like, Sam Leavitt has been a good quarterback in the past. Yeah, you have all this talent on your roster, but you really haven't seen them work together. I mean, Sam Leavitt's been injured. You haven't seen him on the field practicing with this team until a couple weeks ago. So there's just a lot of unanswered questions with this LSU team right now. It feels like their ceiling could essentially be a national championship, but their floor could also be 6-6. You just don't know.
Absolutely. Inside the top 10 we go here. And here is where I'm a little bit interested in the A&M over Ole Miss, in my opinion. Yeah. I feel like there's more question marks with the Aggies this season than there are with Ole Miss.
I totally agree with that, especially with Trinidad Chambliss coming back.
Yeah.
I just feel like that Ole Miss team has so many returners. If they were questioning anything, I feel like it has to be the coaching situation with Lane Kiffin not being back this year.
They lost DeJon Stribling, who's one of their better wide receivers, but then they go out in the portal and they replace him. Right. You have the best QB running back duo in the country coming back. You have a defense that should be better this season than it was last year. Your biggest question mark is going to be how does the offensive line hold up?
They won a playoff game last year.
They won 2 playoff games. So it just doesn't really make – and Texas A&M couldn't past the Miami defense that, I mean, at the time we were like, all right, what's going on here? Why can A&M not score here? But then that Miami defense ended up, helping them move on to the national championship. What I also find interesting is the defending national champion Indiana received 8 first-place votes and did not get inside the top 5. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And I know this is an SEC show, and I definitely think that, look, Indiana, I know there are some people that don't think Josh Hoover is quite as good as Fernando Mendoza was last year.
Right.
But, I mean, they just – I don't want to say they exploited this new ruling on the 5th year, but they have a lot of guys coming back that are in their 5th year and that got eligibility because of this court ruling.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's going to be like, hey, you know, I don't think this defense is really going to fall off at
It's
all.
Kurt Signetti.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot count that man
him
out
out. I mean,
after what he did last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That just doesn't really make sense to me. And then inside the top 5, Texas sits at number 5. That's kind of a disrespect to Jaden Daniels, but I'm just going to, you know, pile on the memes that we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Oh,
Notre Dame at 4, Georgia at 3, Oregon 2, Ohio State at 1. So the Big Ten claims the top two spots.
I feel like that's pretty similar to what we've been saying, although they did have 8 teams and SEC had 9 teams in the top 25, so it does feel like they're pretty even, but I do feel like the argument has been that the Big Ten has more of the top-heavy teams, but throughout their conference, it's not as difficult as what we see in the SEC.
I think now... I mean, going back to last week, if I'm not mistaken, we both agreed that Texas is probably a top 5 team.
Yes.
Do you think that hype is more warranted this year than it was last year?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the addition of Cam Coleman on their team. I just think
he's been making some good catches.
He's been making some insane catches. I think with Arch having the experience under his belt from last year, him and Ryan Wingo really have a lot of chemistry. Then you add Cam Coleman, who's just another incredible receiver. I think the expectation should absolutely be higher this season.
My thing is, going back inside that top 5, I know we just talked about Texas.
Yeah.
I find it interesting in a certain aspect, like Georgia, but also Oregon being number 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know if you go based on who they're returning, like they've got the best potential quarterback in the country in Dante Moore. They got a great wide receiving room. They have great this, great that. Dan Lanning's a pretty good coach. They play in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And they'll be playing against some national championship contenders. But based on what you've seen in the postseason, and just in general around that with Dan Lanning, do you believe in this hype around this Oregon program?
I don't know, because I do feel like if they're going to have a year, it's going to be this year with Dante Moore returning. I mean, a lot of people thought he would be one of the first guys to go in the NFL draft last year. So, I mean, that's a lot of talent, experience that you're returning to the quarterback position. So I do feel like if you're going to be a high on Oregon, this is the year to do it. But they haven't shown us in the past that they can make it work. So it's tough.
It's just, I want to believe in this program, because I mean, I do like Oregon. I don't have anything against them.
I like Dan Lanning.
If it were between Oregon and Ohio State, I would 100% pick Oregon every single day of the week. I think Ohio State's the most overrated program of all time, and that's a topic for a different day. But still, I mean, if you go off of what we saw last year, they played Texas Tech and they demolished them in Miami.
Yeah.
But once they went up against Indiana and Atlanta, and Dante Moore really didn't show up at all. I mean, pick 6 on the first drive of the game, and then he throws another couple interceptions, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're in a giant hole at halftime.
Yeah.
Left a little bit of a sour taste in, I think, a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah.
You combine that with another blowout the year before as the number 1 seed in the country against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. That's just where I'm like, all right, maybe we need to pump the brakes on Oregon just a little bit. Or to you just mentioned, maybe the third time is the charm for this team.
Yeah.
Because you do have Dante Moore coming back.
Yeah.
And it feels like this team on paper is loaded.
Right.
I mean, you can win on paper all you want.
I think the other thing they're probably holding on to is the fact that they lost to Indiana in the playoffs, and that was the national championship team. So, you know, I think if you kind of look back at last year, their loss doesn't look as bad when it becomes the national championship winner.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, the Vols sit at 20th in the preseason AP poll. I've already voiced my frustrations. Do you believe? And do not add
that
your
doesn't
bias.
put them in the playoffs.
That does not put them in the playoffs, but that tells me that they are a top 25 team as of right now. With no quarterback 1 named, with a couple of starters down due to injury.
Yeah.
Are they too high, too low, or just right at 20?
I think they're just right. I think that's the perfect sweet spot, because you have to think about it. It's a talented team, still some question marks, so they're not guaranteed a playoff spot at number 20. I mean, they wouldn't make the playoff spot at number 20. I just think given the history of Tennessee, Josh Heupel always makes the quarterback work. He's really good at designing the offense around the quarterback skills. I mean, we saw it last year with Joey Aguilar. Yep. We saw it with Hendon Hooker. I just feel like you have two really great returning receivers. You have an incredible run game. And then defense, you have talent. You just have to trust that Jim Knowles is going to make it work.
What I will say is usually, I mean, last year we saw Alabama sitting at 8th. I think they were 8th in the preseason poll, and I don't think Ty Simpson was named the starter. He might have been. That's right. He was named the starter by the time the preseason poll comes out. We have at least 2 teams inside the top 25 that the preseason AP poll is here, and we don't know who their starting quarterback is.
But I think when you look at are we talking about Alabama and Tennessee?
Yeah.
When you look at the options, like there's a lot of talent in terms of all 4 of these guys, right? Like George McIntyre is good. Don't get me wrong. He knows the system. He has an arm. So it feels like he could work in Tennessee's system, but with Faison Brandon, it just feels like his upside is a little bigger. He's a little more athletic, can run around a little more. And I feel like you almost kind of see the same thing with Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, right? Like Keelan Russell feels like he's more athletic, has a lot of talent, but Austin Mack knows the system really well, knows Kalen DeBoer really well. So it just feels like you have experience or talent on with all 4 of those guys.
I'll pose this to you, and I want you to put your Tennessee bias aside here.
Okay.
Take off your Tennessee hat
right.
For a second. Based on those 2 teams,
yeah,
what we have seen, and all the question marks that we have about both of those teams,
yeah,
do you think Alabama deserves to be above Tennessee based on all of the question marks with both of these teams?
I do, because Alabama made the playoffs.
It's true. But
right? Last year, yeah.
But they got absolutely trounced.
They did get absolutely destroyed. But I just feel like they were able to scrap together their season better than Tennessee was able to last season.
Yeah. I honestly think that Alabama being at 13 might even be a little bit high based on right now. Again, the preseason, let's preface it with this.
Yeah.
The preseason AP poll is here so that way we can finally start gauging these teams accordingly.
But it doesn't actually mean
No, I think there was like 16.
Indiana wasn't on this team last year, or on this poll last year.
They were.
They were? What spot were they?
They were 20th.
Okay.
I put it in the rundown.
This is why you didn't tell me.
I put it in the rundown here.
This is the best foreshadowing ever, Patrick.
For all the viewers at home, I put in the rundown who is ranked too high to start, who is ranked too low. I put after that, Indiana was 20th last year.
Okay.
No, the Vols won't be Indiana.
Yes, they will.
No,
this is the most amazing foreshadowing, Patrick.
You're losing the viewers by the
I mean, a national championship would be crazy, but I love that stat. I'm never letting go of that stat now.
That's just not gonna happen. Last thing before we go to break here, Louisville Ole Miss will be the only SEC team. Ole Miss will be the only SEC team.
Top 25 game.
Top 25
game.
game.
I like that.
There was some thought that Clemson might be inside the top 25. They ended up receiving the most votes out of a team that did not make it inside the top 25.
Thank goodness. The AP poll had a little more sense than the coaches poll this year.
I will say.
With Clemson. I know you're big on Clemson.
But what There's 2 sides to the equation. I do think Clemson's going to be better this year. I mean, Dabo Swinney went on the record and said that he had the worst secondary of his career last year, which is, I mean, that's just wild to say as a head coach in general, especially coming from Dabo Swinney.
Yeah, he's going
of all
crazy.
People. But the other side of the equation is if you rank Clemson, then all the SEC haters would be like, oh, you just rank Clemson so that way you can stat pad LSU a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same thing what they're saying about this game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions about Louisville.
That's true.
And I'm already seeing it from the non-SEC people.
I feel like Ole Miss is going to run away with this game.
It's a 6.5-point spread.
Okay.
Which is a little bit interesting in my opinion, especially for a Louisville team that we don't know what their starting quarterback's going to look like. We don't know what the wide receiving room is going to look like.
And it feels like we know exactly what Ole Miss is going to look like.
I mean, for the most part, we can get a general gauge on it. I think the biggest question is, what does John David Baker mean for this offense? But I don't really have my doubts about him because, if you go back and look at what he did in his first stint here at Ole Miss, I mean, he had an offense that was firing at a better clip than the offense did last year.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that for a second. I think they had like 491 yards per game, which was the most prolific offense in Ole Miss history.
Yeah.
When John David Baker was here the first time. So that's why I feel pretty confident about this Ole Miss team. But it'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens in week 1. We're, I think, 18 days away or something like that. So, I mean,
Let's go.
that's 18 days too many for me.
Everyone